Oi, oi, hello and welcome to the Which Bookie YouTube channel for Royal Ascot Day 2 preview. Now, I need to mention a few sponsors that we've got with Which Bookie. Thanks to their help, we can get videos like this out to you guys. We've got Bet Tom, we've got Tote and Talksport Bet. There will be links in the description for each of those bookmakers. Tote actually have a pretty good new customer sign up offer. Bet £10. I think you get £30 in free bets and some free spins as well. But there'll be full terms and conditions in the links in the description, and the terms and conditions will be in the description themselves. Right, Will, we don't even know what's happened on day one yet. We're a few hours away from that. That's going to provide loads of clues as we go through the week, maybe, hopefully. I do remember last year it was one side on one day and then the next day it went back to the other side. So I don't know, maybe we'll figure it out by the time we get through to Saturday's preview. But there is some good racing on day 2. I mean, there's great racing every single day. We'll go through the 7 races like we did before. We'll give our best bets towards the end. Fingers crossed they actually run. I can't believe Sardinian Warrior came out so quickly after as well. But they are the frustrations that are the week. And especially on the Wednesday for me, there was a couple of horses I had my eye on, sort of short-term anti-post. Grounds come up the wrong way for one of them. And then the other one just didn't get declared that I thought they would. So I've had to review a few of the races, but it's good to do that. It's good to talk horses. So I think we should crack on, mate.
Absolutely.
Perfect. So the first race is the Queen Mary Stakes. It's over 5 furlongs. So Group 2, 4 fillies. Zelena, the big talking horse, given the fact that it's following the same route as Liavani did last year, but this time was probably more impressive. I think they said they had loads more to come from her as well. 2-1 at the top of the market, though, Will. Just feels like absolutely disgusting. And we said quickly before we came on, didn't we? The whole Wafnan movement is having way too much of an influence in the market, in my opinion. We've got True Love in a second favourite, top price 13-2. Linilu is in at 7-1 top price. Society Kiss is a general 9-1 shot. It's 11-1 or bigger the rest. There are 25 runners in this race, Will. So I'll let you go first, really, then. Can you decide which of the 25's got the best chance in this race?
I mean, not in terms of the best chance. I don't think proportionally it is the favourite in terms of the price that she is. You know, I don't think she should be 2-1 by any stretch. She was visually impressive at Nottingham. You know, she ran away from a field that wasn't the deepest, I don't think. And the time actually wasn't all that great compared to other races on the card that day. So, you know, vibes were that she was nowhere near ready and that she'll step forward, etc., etc. So, look, she might well be nice, but there's plenty of other really nice fillies in here, you know, that are priced up bigger than they perhaps should be as a result. I want to see, obviously, Proviso, I want to see how the straight course races pan out today, obviously, as we speak, 11 a.m. on the Tuesday, just to see what happens in terms of the track and where jockeys want to be. And quick note on the going stick readings for the Tuesday, they're actually notably quicker on the far side compared to the centre and the stand side. As things stand, that can change, of course, and jockeys might just take a different path. So we'll see how that pans out. But most of the horses that I thought were interesting here are drawn a little bit lower over towards that far side, actually. So I'll give a short rundown of a short list without actually giving a full-on selection. Spicy Marge is definitely one for Michael Bell and Kieran Schumacher. She was good at Newmarket in a time better than the 5 furlong Colts race on the same day as well. And she left the impression that Ascot would really suit her, actually. She got a little bit lost in the dip and then came home strongly. So she's of interest. Society Kiss has to be of interest for Rafe Beckett as well. She won here over course and distance on a day when there was a strong tailwind, and she actually did well to pick up horses that were rolling on the front end, and she cleared away pretty impressively. So she's of note. And the other one is Revival Power for Tim Easterby as well, who pretty extraordinarily won at Thirsk on debut. She was slowly away. They went fast up front, and she was so green throughout that race and still had the inherent ability to go and win with any amount in hand. So she's of some real interest. And the American filly, Lanilu, has to be of interest as well because she looks very, very quick. And if you watch her last replay, it was very, very quick. And in terms of how fast she ran a 5 furlong trip on that occasion, it was a couple of seconds quicker than anything has run a 5 furlong trip in this country. Now, that's obviously provisoed with the ground, etc. But yeah, there'd be 4 that I'm definitely having more than a second glance at. And we'll see what pans out today and see how things turn out in terms of price and draw, etc.
I like that. And we talked about this on yesterday's video as well. It's a 25 runner field for the place pot this is not a handicap. 3 places will be up for grabs. It's frightening to think what the place pot could pay on a day like Wednesday if you manage to get through. So it's good to have a handful on the mind. Zelena's definitely too short in my opinion. So I feel like that's probably the general consensus now. And I think a few people would have bet her anti-post before her first run, given the route that she was going. So, I mean, if you sat on her at bigger prices, then fair play. You've got I don't know if you could say a favourite chance, but I think she's got an obvious chance. Lenina, like you say, the American horse, she does look really quick, looks like a proper sprinter. It's interesting when you've touched on the draw as well, because when I do like recent trends, I'll look for like the last decade. 8 of the last 10 winners of this race have come from stall 14 plus. Now, I know when you look at those, it does depend on what the conditions are, and it can depend where the pace is. There are other variables that go in there, but as a quick glance overview with not having any information from the first day, that was where I was drawn a little bit for looking at some of them. I just thought of the prices. Secret Hideaway is a top price 22 to 1, as low as 18 to 1 in places. I just thought was being a little bit underappreciated in the market. She was a bit outpaced on her debut. She was in a race there against quite a nice filly who we haven't seen since, but the one that was the favourite and the one that was the nice filly, she just went off and bossed things out the front, and it looked a little bit like Secret Hideaway was a bit like, wow, first day out of the stable, this is a bit fast for my liking. Then next time out, I want to say Haydock or York, she won next time out, but she stayed on really well at the end of the race and looked quite strong at the line. I don't think it was a blisteringly fast pace in that race. I don't do the time stuff like you'll do in there, but there was a horse that was keen at the front, but there was a lot of horses that were sort of bunched around that were travelling nicely. So I don't think they went stupidly quick, but she did stay on all right and she didn't get outpaced in that one. So look, there is a chance that she's more like the first race where, especially like the likes of that Lenny Lou that are going to be, or Lenilu's going to be flying out, she might get outpaced. But I remember in the race last year, Moorlam's a filly that I really liked back then, and I still like her, to be fair. She came third at 50 to 1. She was well out the back. I think the runner-up last year as well came from out the back. So as much as some of the firms are being very skinny, with only offering 3 places up for grabs, there are some that are doing 5 places, and most will be doing 4 by tomorrow. So I thought at 22 to 1, given the fact that, like I say, the draw looks like she's in the right side of it as well, I thought she would be the one that I might chance in there. But it's a crazy race to get started with. So not the most confident, but it's going to be the theme of my Wednesday. Well, yesterday it was all at the front of the market. Today is just everything at big prices, because I think that hopefully is the way that it's going to pan out. Right, we'll move on to the second race of the day. Group 2 over 1 mile, 6 furlongs, Queen's Vase. This looks like quite a nice race too. This looks like a really hard one to pick apart, I thought, though. We've got Shackleton at the front of the market at 3 to 1. We've got Karma's in at 5 to 1. Asmarani in at 13 to 2. It's Devil's Advocate at 7 to 1. We've got Scandinavia at 8 to 1. Rahib is at 10 to 1. And then it's, well, as low as 11 to 1, but as big as 16 to 1, bar the rest of those. So, Will, where did you see the best way to get into this race? We've got 13 runners in here. It looks like a nice race. When it's this sort of stamina test in there, I'd like to think that there's got to be a good few horses that have got 0 chance. So was it more of a case of whittling down the field, or did you have an in before you needed to do that?
Yeah, well, I think the market has completely missed one form line here, and that's the Chester Vase. Obviously, Lambourne and Lazy Griff gave that a fair boost in the Derby, the Epsom Derby, didn't they? Convergent, who was third that day for Carl Burke, runs later on in the week, I think, in the either the Hampton Court or the King Edward VII Stakes. He was third, and then the 4th and 5th, Pinhole and Further. They were about 5 or 6 lengths behind Convergent that day, but the market has just seemingly completely dismissed that in terms of this race. Obviously, in respect to that, it represents what, in theory, is a drop in grade. Now, it's hard to say that with 3-year-olds improving at different rates, so we don't know that for sure. But for me, I mean, Pinhole, you can back 16 to 1, 4 places. Further is 22 to 1, slightly bigger. I would have more doubts about Further staying this trip. No pun intended on his name there, by the way, with regards to that. I think he has looked a slightly speedier horse Further, whereas Pinhole, to me, I mean, completely unexposed. Had one start for Sir Michael Stout last back end in a Newmarket maiden, hit the line in characteristic, late staying on fashion. He then went and won an easy race on the all-weather, and then was pitched straight into the Chester Vase by Rafe Beckett, which, for a trainer like that, Rafe Beckett, to do that with a horse suggests he feels this is a horse of some level of ability to be able to handle the Chester Vase on just his 3rd racecourse start. And if you watch that race back, again, in true Chester fashion, he got caught in amongst runners and in behind runners. And he's a big, tall, long striding horse who, he just couldn't find top stride at any stage. But interestingly, when he gets probably with about 2 furlongs to run or so, when he does find a bit of daylight and gets pulled out by Ross Orion, the response is quite quick, and he goes quite clearly into 4th, and you think he's going to run down, very close to the eventual 3rd there. But actually, Ross Orion was really sympathetic on him late on. He just made sure that he held on for 4th, but there was so much left under the locker. Honestly, you watch that race back, and I'm amazed that he's been put in at the price here of 16-1. Given that form line, obviously, various snippets of that form line have come out and been boosted really handsomely since. Ascot, 1 mile and 6, big, long galloping track. I think it's pretty much the bet of the day, actually, in terms of a price-related bet. Because I'm not convinced by those at the top of the market. The Aidan O'Brien pair, yes, he wins this pretty much every year, but they didn't really excite me, those two. The one that I thought might be the main danger is Karma's for Paddy Toomey, who I think could have a good Wednesday, because he looks like a sort of big, lazy stayer as well. But in terms of price, Pinhole, most overpriced horse that I could find on the Wednesday.
Ooh, I like that. And I touched on the place terms for the race before. We had the 25 runners, and I was saying that most firms will be offering 4 places in the end, I reckon. 13 runners in here, Will, and we're still getting 4 places. So half the field, you're getting just as many places for those place terms. Yeah. And like you've said, in your opinion, they're very attractive prices.
You're getting nearly 100 to 30 to fill the first 4 spots, which is a massive price for a horse like that to finish in the first 4, given what he's done already.
Nice. Well, that's a bit of a spoiler alert for later in the video, but I don't know, you might get more bullish as we go on. I looked at this one, Will, and I thought to myself, it looked tough, was my first initial thought with it. And then it was more a case of, I could find holes, I think, with other ones to suggest why they wouldn't be good enough to win a Group 2, as opposed to getting excited about anything. The one I did start to get a bit excited about, though, was Spinning Wheel. Unraced as a 2-year-old, gelded, 2 from 2 this year as a 3-year-old. I think he looks a bit lazy and idle, and I like the fact that he's been winning his races while looking like that. The last time out, he was on the rail. The horse came on the outside of him, headed him, and then on the inside he won. And I don't know whether the jockey, misjudged the line or whatever it was, but the jockey just stopped riding him and he still went and won the race. It looked like he went on there. So I'm not saying that means that the jockey thought he had loads left in him or not, but I like his attitude. I like some of those horses, even a little bit like an Illinois or like even Jan Brugger at times, isn't it? Those horses that they've got a little bit more in there. They do race, like you mentioned about some of the other horses, like the big lazy ones. I think Spinning Wheel looks like that. And the fact that he's only had the 2 starts just like that Karma's, he's open to a significant amount of improvement. He looks, for all that I'm saying, he's lazy and idle, that stuff. He looks fairly polished, to be fair. It looks like he knows how to run a race, and he knows how to obviously get his head in front and win a race. And if you look at his sequence and RPRs as well, which again, I know it's only somebody's opinion, he popped up I think it was an 85 and then for an 84 and then a 94 RPR, so quite a steep rate of progression. And even with that Karma's that is priced as 5-1, he did an 87 and then run a 96. So there isn't much between those two, I think, on what they've achieved so far. I think that Spinning Wheel's been holding a bit back for himself as well. And I thought when I wrote this up yesterday at 14s, he looked big. He's as big as 18-1 now in here. I just think he looks overpriced as well. So there's some competition for us, Will. They're looking at potentially like the place side of it, but it does look like we're both going away from the top of the market. And I think it'll be a really interesting race. I'm hoping that Spinning Wheel is just that type. He is that lazy horse that's just going to be an absolute aeroplane and he'll just go as fast as everything else around him. Because I do worry about those types of horses that if they can't go as fast as everything else in the field, how much they might throw the towel in. And then from an each way perspective, it tempers that a little bit. Just because he's a big price, you would think you want to back him each way. But then I don't know whether he's just worth the win dart, because I think if he does get beat, he might throw the towel in. But I'll decide I want to play that. The fact he's drifting out to 18-20, he's definitely going to be a play. So we're flying on those first couple of races. If we can get a couple of tri-casts up with 14-1, 16-1, and 18-1, we'll be doing all right, I reckon, for the viewers. It feels like it's one of those days on Wednesdays. I'm cautiously optimistic, should I say, but everything's still to play for, because like we say, day one hasn't started yet. Right, we'll move on to the third race on the Wednesday. Duke of Cambridge Stakes, Group 2 for fillies and mares. It's over a mile. Another race that looks competitive, I would say, and it'll be interesting to see what happens again for Tuesday, for the benefit of lots of things, but also for the fact of seeing how that Lockinge form does work out in the Queen Anne Stakes for Fallen Angel, because I get at the moment she's like relatively short anyway as a 3-1 poke, but you can see a bit of a market move on some of these. Cinderella's Dream heads the market at the moment though at 2-1. Fallen Angels in at 3-1. One looks as big as 6-1, but short's 5-1. Running Lions a general 7-1 poke. El Melka's top price 11-1. Sopranos 14-1. Start of the day is 25-1, but again like as low as 12-1 with one firm. And then Crimson Advocate general 25-1 poke, but a 28-1 poke as the top price. So Will, again, I had bones to pick with lots of these. Cinderella Dream was smashed in the betting when she won that. I think it was a 4-runner race, wasn't it, at Newmarket? And I quite liked Beautiful Love, was it? I think it is the horse that was in third, the other Godolphin horse, but she's been rubbish since. And I gave her the benefit of the doubt after a bad run the time after. And I know that day they knew that she wasn't going to win, but the fact she got so close to Cinderella's Dream, now that I've followed that one in, just makes me wonder how special Cinderella's Dream is. But like I think she deserves to be near the front of the market. Similar-ish with Fallen Angel, really. Like you can see she's got ability, but yeah, I don't know if there's anything enough about her to get me excited. So I've got one at a stupid price. I've got one that I think is a stupid price in here, but I feel like I want to let you go again first, Will, because one of these we're going to match on, and I hope it's this one. So where was your eye drawn in this market? Because we've got a smaller field here. We have got 3 places up for grabs with the dead 8. So if the field stands up, is it a race ripe for an each way bet?
Yes, it is, I think. And I only needed one look at this, if you'll see where I'm going with this.
One look.
One look. Yeah, Paddy Toomey and Billy Lee. She's a horse who I still don't think we've seen the absolute best of, I must admit. You know, she was an extraordinary winner of that ridiculously expensive Goff's Million race at the Curragh 2 seasons ago, where racecourse debut she won in excess of €500,000 for a connection. So anything else is absolutely going to be a bonus from that point onwards. But she's progressed really nicely actually through listed Group 3s, and this season she was impressive when she won on her racecourse debut, beating Ecstatic in the Group 3 at the Curragh. And then she ran a cracking race, I thought, in the Group 2 Landwade Studs stakes behind Porta Fortuna, who Porta Fortuna would win this by, any amount really in terms of raw ability. She's a Group 1, absolute rock solid mile, fast ground filly. And one look, it looked almost something like a prep race for this actually, because Billy Lee allowed Porta Fortuna to almost get first run, give him a target to go at. And the way that one look ran down, or very nearly ran down, Porta Fortuna that day at the Curragh on a speed favouring track and a speed favouring day with a tailwind was really notable for me, because I think they've always felt she'd get further. But actually the pace she showed there on fast ground that day, mixed in with her kind of improvement and her ability to stay strongly, I think the round track here, the mile at Ascot, is going to suit her really well. As long as she gets a nice prominent sit, Billy Lee can track whatever's leading. Probably it'll be Running Lion or Falling Angel. And I think she's a really, really good each way bet here with the 8 runners, 11-2, 6-1. I'd have had her more around the 7-2 mark. I really would. I think in terms of raw ability, she's up there with the likes of Cinderella's Dream and Fallen Angel, and she's still improving for me. I think there's more to come from her. So she's probably, those 2 that I've just mentioned, her and Pinhole, they'd be my 2 strongest thoughts on the day, on the Wednesday.
Awesome. I still feel like you could get more excited as we go on, but I like the confidence with them.
No, I won't. That's it.
It's a real tidy races one. And obviously being a Group 2, we do need to remember that Cinderella's Dream is carrying a £3 penalty. So again, people have different opinions, don't they? They think it's just a couple of packs of bacon on their back, like it shouldn't make much of a difference, but penalty system's there for a reason, isn't it? But if you take it away from that, if you include that in there, so you do sort of weight adjust the ratings, there's only £7 between the entire field in here. That's why I was, I guess, forgiving, and especially at the price of the chance of Crimson Advocate in here, purely for the fact that she was a sprinter, wasn't she? She won at Royal Ascot over 5 furlongs, didn't she? On a Group 2 before. She was mixing it with real good sprinters as well back then. Now she joined the Gosdens, didn't she? She ran in the 5 furlong sprint here, where in the race of Asphora, but she was miles beaten. And then the 2 runs they've run her this year, they've just put her up to a mile, and they've decided that's the option to go with. Obviously, changing for a new yard, they've just maybe ran her last time for the sake of running her in terms of last season. And then these 2 runs this season, they probably thought, well, actually, no, do you know what? I think she is a miler. Now, the race against Soprano first time up, Soprano was an 8-11 poke before, drifted out to 2-1, just won on the jam stick. I still don't really know on the head bob how that worked. But Crimson Advocate was, I thought, quite eye-catching for the fact that stayed on nicely. The confidence when you see it, especially like in the jumps races when a jockey sits a horse at the back to try and ride him to get the trip. Felt a lot like that with Crimson Advocate. Then when she ran next time out, I thought she would probably be ridden a bit more aggressively, but she wasn't. They were patient again. They waited, and she just got up on the line again. Now, it's not that she can't go faster because she's a Group 2 5 furlong horse, but they obviously were doing that to make sure that she stayed. And I wonder in here whether the combination of going up against proper group fillies in here that will go that bit faster, but obviously they're not going to go as fast as the 5 furlongs. And the fact that she's had those couple of runs under her belt to condition her after disappointing after first switching to the yard, I think the race could be run to really, really suit her. And if she can keep on the coattails of some of these, she might have to be asked, well, she will. She'll have to be asked a lot sooner than she has been in those other couple of races. But if they get after her and she manages to stay in the race, obviously I've got no doubt that she's got the fastest turn of foot in the race. So it's one of those that tactically they could run this race differently a couple of times. If they don't go fast, then that might give her a chance. If they go too fast, then I don't know, it might even suit her better. But it's just that you don't know how it's going to run out on the day. But I thought 28-1, or like I said, general 25-1, I definitely can see her running a big race. Like I could see her filling the frame, and it wouldn't be outside the realms of possibilities if tactically it worked out well and a couple of other horses sort of cut each other off. She could actually win this race because, like, running line as much as I like her, I don't really like her at the moment. She's got headgear on for the first, hasn't she? I think she might have lost her way a little bit. And I'm a big fan of following like fillies and mares that are in form as opposed to the ones that've got a little bit to prove. So even that Lockinge form for Fallen Angel, people will say, well, none of these would have got within a few lengths of them. I would rather have seen her be winning races or rather seen her running a different type of race. So yeah, I like Soprano a little bit for the fact that she should have stepped forward for that run, but I would have liked to have seen her since. I just think Crimson Advocate, even on that line of form alone, is twice the price that she should be. So rates as like a value alternative. If she got down to the likes of 12 or 14-1, which she won't do, she would still be a bet, but she'd be sort of tempered. But at the price she is, I'm going to get excited about her, Will. I'll stick her in a forecast with yours as well, just so that I can get compensation if it doesn't come in. But yeah, it's the route I'm going down on Wednesday. Not intentionally, by the way. I did all these races individually and looked at them and just thought, you know what? Yeah. I like what I like. Right, yeah, exactly. On to the fourth race, the Group 1 we've got here, the Prince of Wales Stakes. This is a quality race, Will. 1 mile, 2 furlongs. This was a race where I was kind of hoping White Birch would come. They want to mind him, don't they? He had a setback last year and didn't manage to make it. And they said if there's any firm in the description, they wouldn't risk him. But I thought that race last time, he got a terrible run in the home straight, in the last couple of furlongs especially. He was sort of level with Kalpana and she got a clear run. He didn't. He lost a couple of lengths to her and still managed to reel her in. I genuinely think if he'd have got a clear run the last day, he would have won that race. And I know he didn't. And I know he's not in there. So I don't want to waste too much time talking about him. But it just makes me feel like Los Angeles and Ammat are a bit short at the front of it for the fact that they came 1 and 2 in that race. And arguably, if White Birch had got the run and won that, maybe they would have been slightly bigger prices, but they probably still would have been towards the front of it. It's a hard race, I think, to really whittle down, in my opinion, because See the Fire was really, really good against her own sex last, wasn't she? Like frighteningly good. She does get the sex allowance in here. So I think she's got an obvious chance. But Ombudsman's the one that was, I thought, the biggest threat to White Birch if White Birch had have come here, purely for the fact that he looked like an absolute monster last year when I saw him race, like the type of horse that really takes your eye out. Even like when Estrange went and won earlier this season, you go back and watch her runs from last year and you think, well, you can tell that she's a beast. And I felt a bit like that with Ombudsman. I was a little disappointed with his comeback run at Sandown when he was like carrying a penalty because he was smashed in the betting right at the off, but he was really weak just before that. So I don't know whether someone computer bot or something went weird or whatever it was, but someone bet him and someone got it wrong last time out is what I would say. Either that or the bubbles burst. But I'd be prepared to forgive him. William Buick's up on top of him now. He would be my idea of the horse that if I had to have a bet in the race, he would probably be my selection in there. But it does look competitive. He's top price 11-2, but he's as low as 9-2 out there. I don't know if there's enough juice in that for me to actually want to take the risk that, he's got the form in the book that's in the realms of this, but this is going to be his biggest test to date. And I don't know if at that price I'd want to play with him. So that's where I'm sat with it, Will. Not an outlandish price, only a 5-1 poke in there. Probably won't be a bet, but I could be tempted. Could you tempt me with anybody else?
No bet for me at all in this race. I think the market has this, absolutely right in that It's guessing, I think, and I would be guessing because Bar Los Angeles, who we probably know is just the best of these. That's the way the market's gone with Anmat, See the Fire, Map of Stars, Ombudsman, all quite closely matched in behind. And on any given day, they might have that extra pound or two's improvement to find to win the race. But for me, given the fact that none of them can be backed bigger than 5-1, that to me absolutely signifies what the bookmakers think of this race and what most people probably also will think of this race, and certainly what I think of this race. It is one to watch and savour because it's a really competitive, high-class renewal of it. If you if you had a 50p each way bet that was ready to go, possibly factor Cheval at a big old price because on his day he's very, very good. He might have just maybe gone over the peak of where he was once at, but on his day, like I said, a mile fast ground was the ideal set of conditions for him. Maybe now a well-run 10 furlongs where he can settle away and track the pace. That might actually be the perfect setup for him now. But I think given how competitive the top end of the market is here, it wouldn't be one that entices me in. But like I said, he's a good horse to be going off a big old price, sort of 18-1, 16-1. But it's not a bet, for me, because the top end of the market's really strong.
Yeah, I'm glad you've got a similar thought on there because it does look a tough one. And obviously, with everything we're trying to do, ultimately, we just want to see the price being bigger than what we think the implied chance is. And they have got this where they should have it. It's crazy, isn't it? When you get these ones, especially when you've got a handful of horses you can make a case for, if any of them were twice the price, you'd be like, well, that's the bet. But obviously none of them are. And that's what I think could happen with the market overnight. And especially with things happening on day one, it might end up, I don't see it, but Ombudsman might end up drifting a bit like he was weak at Sandown. He might go up to like a 7 or 8-1 poke. And then I could be tempted to go in. But as it stands at the moment, there's plenty of races to get stuck into at Royal Ascot. And this is a good one to sit back and watch, I believe. So me and you can do that. Well, we can sit back, watch, but then we can get excited about the Royal Hunt Cup, can't we? Because Volterra didn't get confirmed for this. And I think myself and quite a few people saw his run last time out. We thought this was the perfect race for him. You have to, I think, in these situations, take comfort in the fact that they haven't run them because they knew they wouldn't win the race. So rather than them just run for the sake of it, because a few people got anti-post bets, your money was done anyway, is what I'd consider. And at least you get the chance to look at it through a fresh pair of eyes and try and find something else. So I've done that, and I found it really difficult, Will, I'll be honest. I reached the point of I can make a confident case for I can make a reasonable case, I think, for quite a few of these to be in the frame. But a lot of them I was thinking, I just think they might be held for win purposes. Horses like Kirat and even Fox Legacy to an extent. So I'll be interested to know where you sat with it. The one that I will have a play on is a horse that came out on like some trends that I'll do for the race that ticks loads of boxes in there. And he's got the right profile to run a race at a big price. We talked earlier about the place terms for the 25 runner first race. This is a 30 runner field, Will, if they all stand their ground. We have got some firms offering up to 7 places in it. So it's ripe for a decent each way bet, hopefully, or maybe even a couple of darts. So where were your darts going to be thrown at?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is a race absolutely that's going to be dependent on what happens today, I think, because you look at the market and the top 3 are drawn 30, 31 and 32. So hard up against the stand side rail. All 3 of them, have kind of an obvious profile for the race, don't they? But it could be a case that, let's say the far side is the place to be. Then suddenly, they all make the market for horses that, just probably been completely overlooked towards the middle or far side. I'm not saying that's going to be the case, but that might be an angle in for me to try and find something at a slightly bigger price. And if that was the situation that might potentially play out, then Fox Legacy is definitely on the short list in stall 11. Very lightly raced type. First start for Andrew Boulding, having joined from Sir Michael Stout's yard. Absolutely ran away with a 9 furlong handicap at Newmarket last time out. You can see a well-run stiff mile at Ascot really suiting him as well. And as has been the case with a lot of the horses actually that have joined from Sir Michael Stout's battalions, they've sort of improved and they've stepped forward on what they've been doing. So he's of real interest, I thought, Fox Legacy. And then at bigger prices, Urban Lion, who we only saw a couple of days ago winning at Sandown, But he is another one who will really appreciate a big field, well-run mile. We know he's in good form. Stall 3, you can get 33s or something about him. If that's the place to be, then he's going to run his race, I would imagine. So he's got to be of interest. And the other one is drawn more in the middle, which is Ancient Rome, who seems to run in a lot of these big races for the Hayes. Charlie Hills has got him now after being trained by Andre Fabre a couple of seasons ago. He won a couple of good races for Charlie Hills first up in his career, and he's not quite had things go his way in the last 12 to 18 months. He's been gelded, had a wind up, and you could probably suggest on his last 3 runs that he might well have gone at the game, for want of a better phrase. But there's also the chance that he's just been coaxed back to try and land a big race like this off what is a falling handicap mark, and on his absolute best, he'd be really, really competitive. So, 2 or 3 on the short list, but as things stand, very much, willing to delve a little bit deeper once we know what's happened on day 1.
Yep, that's fair enough, Will. There was a few that sort of fell to my lap with the fact that Volterra didn't come out. Obviously, Roger Varian running My Cloud, who beat Boyfriend, didn't he? And Boyfriend came out and won after, potentially could be like a little bit of a tip in itself. Sisyphean, the same owners for Kevin Ryan in there. I looked at that one and thought, I only want to make a case for it because it's the same owners and they've switched out, but it just makes me feel like they knew that Volterra should be saved for another day and they wanted to run her in the race, which is probably a terrible way to say it. But these would be the types of horses that might fall into like a play spot bet for me. Popmaster's a horse I just love round Ascot. I know he's probably better at 7 furlongs. He probably needs like 7.5 rather than the mile, but I think he just gets really disrespected for the fact that he just doesn't win very often. And he ran well last time to pick up the pieces. So like he's another one that would probably go in the play spot bit. But the one that, if I was sort of, and I know we're not forced for a selection, but if I was to whittle down to one that would be a stronger fancy, Tokenomics ticked loads of boxes in the trends profile for me. His trainer, David Barnane, actually won this race in 2018 with a fairly similar type horse. This one's had 4 wins from 11 starts. It's got a career high mark now, but off the back of a break and then starting this season over 7 furlongs, won fairly nicely, I think, which would have been a step in tones to this. The step up to the mile should bring up more improvement, plus the fact that race fitness is there, and you'd imagine that they've been targeted this one. There's a slight question mark for me on this horse around about the ground. Like, I don't know whether the good to firm is going to be his absolute optimum. And I know we don't definitely know about the draw, but I think when I've looked at this statistically in the past, if you were just to do it blind and not worry about what's happened on any of the days, potentially the high draw looks like it could be a nice draw to work from on here. So he was one I just thought about 20-1, could be a horse that gets supported and might end up going off shorter than he is at the moment, but it wouldn't be a strong opinion. And good luck to anyone that has got a strong opinion in a 30 runner mile handicap at Ascot on day 2, where we're going to get those clues, well, aren't we? But like I say, last year there was, especially after that first race where the jockeys just went the wrong side of the course, everyone was saying you needed to be drawn one side and you get to the next day and everything comes from the other side. But well, it pans out how it pans out, but it's a good, exciting race. Very difficult race, I think, is my general consensus on that one. We move on to the 5:35, Will. Kensington Palace Stakes. It's a fillies handicap this time, 0 to 105 over the straight mile. In here, we've got a 4-1 favourite of Rainbow's Edge. We've got Arola in at 7-1. Sky Safari's in at top price 9-1, but as short as 15-2. Arisaig's in top price 10-1, but more like a general 8-1. Kahana's 12-1, and then it's 14-1 or bigger the rest of those. And I say the rest of those, Wills, 24 runner handicap. So I feel like this is the type of one where, does it get easier the more we wait for this one, or do you just think you should find the horse you think that's got the chance and stick with them? Because I mean, I find this a very difficult race to whittle it down to even a few horses. So I'd like to know how you did.
Yeah, I mean, there's one horse that's been kind of on my radar for this all season long, really. And the fact that she's been declared, is obviously a notable positive, because it's probably been the thought from connections as well. And that's last year's 8th Arisaig. She was 8th in the Sandringham last year, the 3-year-old version of the this particular race as such. So the fact that she's now up in against the kind of all-age older fillies, and I still think that she's not, we haven't quite seen the absolute best of her, Arisaig. She won a couple of starts after finishing 8th in last year's Kensington Palace, and Sandringham, let me get the words right. she was actually second or third in the far side group in that race last year in the Sandringham, and she ran a really eye-catching race for me, a lot better than the bare form of that 8th. Behind Soprano, of course, who has gone on to better things, and horses placed in that race have gone on to much better things as well. Now, Arisaig has only had 3 starts this year, but she caught the eye at Newbury on her seasonal debut in the Spring Cup. She was then mightily unlucky not to at least go close, if not win a listed race at Goodwood on her second start behind Crimson Advocate. Hopefully that form will be boosted for you earlier on in the day. And then last time out, over the straight mile here in a 6-runner event, it was a Dawdle, Rainbow's Edge, who's currently favourite for this race, got first run, and Arisaig had to try and run her down and got close to doing so. For all the world, she's a filly that this big field scenario, strong pace, dropped late on the line, hopefully by Jamie Spencer. You know, she absolutely has to be in the shake-up without a shadow of a doubt for me, as long as the draw is passable. Stall 5 obviously should be over on the far side. There's a couple of horses that will push forward over there. You know, hopefully that's advantageous. So I haven't backed her yet, but I just want to make sure that stall 5 and a low draw isn't a negative. And if it's not, then she'll be an each way bet, definitely.
Oh, I like that one. And speaking of each way bets, there's some firms offering 7, but most look like they'll be offering 6 in this one. So it does look right, especially when we've got like the shorter price ones towards the head of the market. Because if you took even the first 2 out of the bet, and it's going to be about 10 to 1 bar, and you've still got your 4 places up for grabs with those ones. Yeah, I found it difficult to be confident about anything. A good friend of mine mentioned that Ross Orion's got a real good record riding for Gemma Tutty. I think it's 2 from 6. I say a real good record. It's a small sample size, but it made him look at Thelma's Angel in this race. He's a 33 to 1 poke, started at 5 furlongs, then won at 6 furlongs, had a big old break, 400 odd days, running a listed race at Musselburgh, 6th in that race of 9 over 7 furlongs. But that was fairly recent. So on the 7th of June, in here for handicap debut, very unexposed. And after that 6 furlong win last year, before whatever setback this horse has faced, got an RPR of 82, but looked like it was the horse that, like, the penny had finally dropped and was on an upward curve. So there's the risks of not knowing how primed and ready that horse could be in here, but that was one at a big price that, again, would be one that goes in the play spot for me for sure. Another one that's, I guess, not a tricky one to mention, but it's well worth mentioning the reality of the prices we've got in here. Francophone is top price 40 to 1, but bottom price 14 to 1. So while I'm quoting this horse at 40s, that's the reason why I want to make a bit of a case for the horse, because first time cheap pieces with this one, dropping back to a mile, and it's only a second handicap start as well. A prior one was at a mile, and she absolutely hacked up in that. So I know her marks moved a little bit about there, but she does look the type of horse that has sort of underachieved this season. So the fact the cheap pieces have been reached for, I don't mind. The fact they're dropping back in trip, I don't mind, because she's got the form at that distance. And like the 40 to 1 top price definitely looks too big. I mean, it's obvious when there's a low price of 14s, but if she was anything 25 to 1 or bigger, I'd be tempted with her. She would definitely be a horse that goes in the play spot. Serialize is another one that's interesting if Tokenomics does do something in the race before, because there's a line through there, and even Skakusa Serialized ran behind. So that's another one that I'd have one eye on at the moment. She's a bottom price of 11 to 1 and top price 14 to 1, so I can leave her as she is at the moment. And the ones towards the front of the market, I thought Sky Safari looked probably the more obvious one, because she travelled okay in her race despite the fact that she was quite keen. I just don't know with this race whether I'd be able to pin myself down to something, but there'd be a few, I think, that there'd be a few that I'd want to put in the play spot, but I don't definitely know that I could find a horse in this race that I think is very well handicapped. I just think there's some horses that could have excuses for how they've run recently. I like to say of Arisaig as well. She's just the type, isn't she? She keeps catching the eye, keeps getting unlucky and runs, and you could see her doing that here, couldn't you? Wherever it is, but you can see her filling the frame and getting herself in there. So Wednesday's a hard day. Well, it really is, but they were my sort of handful of horses that were on the radar. The Francophone thing, like I say, it almost feels stupid to say it, because the 40-12 Elaborates Corals now, that may be gone by the time this gets uploaded if a few people just see the price differences, because people will back it just off the difference of that, won't they, rather than anything else. But I've had a couple of pound each around that one. Right, we'll move on to the lucky last, Will. A listed race. Yep. We're out the handicaps, 5 furlongs though. Oh, it doesn't get any easier, does it, Will? We haven't got that many runners this one. We've only got 24 to go out in here. it's the same thing for every race for Wednesday. It looks a really hard race in here. I'll quickly say my line because mine's short, sweet, and very blunt. In the fact that Carl Burke 2-year-olds are just always nice, aren't they? Azizam was the one that I thought was really interesting. Top price 22 to 1, as low as 16, but it's going to be like a general 20 to 1 poke. 6 of the last 10 winners of this race as well came from either the highest or the lowest 2 stalls. So they could have been drawn in 1 or 2 or like the widest ones, so 23 or 24. And that includes when there's been non-runners in there. So potentially being out on a wing in this race, especially with it being 5 furlongs, can be very helpful. So that helps Azizam tick that box. We know Carl Burke's very good with his 2-year-olds. If you backed all these 2-year-olds blind, basically since he's been training outside of a handicap company, you'd still make money. And then if you back his 2-year-olds at Ascot, not specifically this meeting, but I could whittle that down, it's got a very good return on investment in there. He does well. I think it's a strike rate of around about 16%. So they're not all going in, but a lot of them run well into places that don't win. So all those bits about the Carl Burke 2-year-old is the nice bit in there. But this horse on his debut, or on her debut, was not really very fancied, and won nicely, and was asked to quicken. Once was asked to quicken, and the race was put to bed. They didn't really need to ask the horse to do any more. Now, Carl Burke won the same race the year before. I think it was Milford that went for the Norfolk Stakes, the Group 2 sort of version of this race. That won the race on Hamilton on soft ground, came to here on good to firm, was 6th or 7th in the group, was just like a bit on the wrong side, but it was in a race with Whistlejack that was in there and was following on that side of the horses. But I just feel a little bit like Carl Burke has maybe decided that, look, this horse did put in a better performance than Milford did last year, as far as I'm concerned. The RPRs would match that up as well, and then come in for a listed contest rather than pitch them into a Group 2 company would suggest that maybe this is a realistic target rather than shooting for the moon and then hopefully land him on the stars. So I thought, as is I could make enough of a case to say that 20 to 1's worth a small stake investment in there. But surely, Will, nobody can be confident in this race. Have you got anything that you think could be the absolute good thing of the day?
Yeah, I mean, that's the way the market's gone as well, hasn't it? With 5 to 1 top price, the favourite, and then plenty all within a couple of points of that, really. So it is very much at the minute it's a guessing game. There'll be 1 or 2 factors that might change that in terms of perhaps stable form, related form lines, draw, etc. So again, still very much in the formative stages with any thoughts on this race. But shortlist wise, I thought it was interesting that Eve Johnson Horton is going again with Havana Hurricane, just a couple of weeks or just under a couple of weeks after the woodcut at Epsom, where he was mightily unlucky really that day. I think a stiff 5 actually is probably better for him on drying ground or decent ground. So he's a definite player. Old is gold for Andrew Boulding has to be a player, and Wathnan as well. Good winner at Beverley in the 2-year-old trophy there, having stepped forward nicely from that run behind Military Code here at Ascot, which I think is good form with Fitzella in second. And the other one is Shaman Champion for Richard Hughes, who's drawn in stall 1. He was impressive at Leicester, I thought, in a decent time as well. So a couple in the shortlist. They're all drawn low, which is an interesting angle. Again, that might be something I have to revisit after today, and we'll see what pans out. And it might be that you scrap all those and just look at the high draws. Who knows? That's the thing with Royal Ascot. You've got to always be flexible with regards to 1 or 2 factors. So we'll see. But yeah, it's a tricky closer. If you're banking on this as you get out stakes, then I wish you the very best of luck.
Yeah, you probably shouldn't be getting out in this race. Just wait till Thursday, because there's some better stuff there. But it is. I always find it's like a very tricky tightrope to tread with the draw, especially getting information from the days before, because there certainly is biases. We know that for an absolute fact. But if you make a case for a horse or you fancy a bit of a horse, and then it puts you off significantly because it's the other side of the track or whatever it is, like I find it a very tricky tightrope to tread. But that's where you come into your own when we get the column putting out there. We obviously talk about the races here. By the time the tips are put onto our website, which there'll be a link in the description as always for those, well, I guess we'll have done as much hard work as we possibly can and be making the most well-balanced decision, I guess, for the race. But yeah, Shaman Champion drawing 1. Like I said, highest 2 or lowest 2 stalls have won 6 of the last 10. So I know it's you can make it sound really good, can't you? But you think when there's 20 plus runners every year, and then six renewals in the last decade have come from 4 stalls either side, it can potentially be important, can't it? But it is these types of races. It's more the fact probably that they're in a position where they can get where they want, and then the traffic and all those types of stuff. Like you need a lot of luck to, I don't know, find a horse that might place at Ascot, let alone try and find the winners. So, I mean, we're trying to help people, aren't we, Will? So I don't know why I'm coming in with such lack of confidence. But, I mean, it's a good day's racing on Wednesday. I know, like I said, I'm away from the head of the market. It doesn't necessarily, it changes your confidence slightly because, you know, the shorter price of horses, in theory, the better chance they've got of winning. But I think there's a good few horses to go out from both of us there on Wednesday, especially at nice prices. It only takes a couple of places. I feel like Wednesday's the day to get the play spot as well, Will. So fingers crossed we can get a nice perm in there. As I mentioned, there is that sign-up offer with Tote. You get some Tote credits as well with that sign-up stuff. So again, you could potentially use those for a play spot bet if you were that way inclined. Right, Will, we're doing it again. We're going to find our best two. How do we do it? Our best two bets for Wednesday. Will, we kind of know yours, so I'll let you go short and sweet on what your next best and your nap would be.
Yes.
And then I'll try and guess which two I might want to put up.
Well, next best will be, but probably the most overpriced horse on the day is Pinhole in the Queen's Vase at 305. Comes out of that Chester Vase race, which looks strong, obviously, with Lambourne and Lazy Griff filling 1 and 2 in the Epsom Derby. And Chester 1.5 miles, you know, was absolutely at the very bottom end of Pinhole's stamina range, really. He's a big, long, tall galloper. 1.6 miles at Ascot's really going to suit him. You can get 14 to 1, 16 to 1 now. That's a brilliant each way price, I think, for Rafe Beckett's runner there. And the nap selection comes in 35 minutes later in the Duke of Cambridge Stakes, the Group 2 round mile race. Paddy Toomey's One Look, close up behind Porta Fortuna last time out, running on. She'll improve for that as well, and that's without a shadow of a doubt the best recent form line coming in here. You can get 11 to 2, 6 to 1 each way about her. She's the nap of the day. One Look.
Oh, I like that, Will. Well, I'll keep the same theme from Tuesday. I'll avoid the races you've done, so if people want to put a bit of a crazy lucky 15 in, they can do so. It feels like almost rogue me saying a nap and a next best, in the fact that they'd both be sort of not lukewarm, but they probably wouldn't hold those types of status. But the two in preference would probably be, I'm happy to take that swing on Azizam in the Windsor Castle Stakes. I feel like this horse looks like he's got the capability to be better than a listed horse. And from the breeding perspective, absolutely bred for speed. I like the draw. There's just lots of things I like. 20 to 1 definitely looks generous, even if the each way 4 places doesn't look as generous. And then the second one that I'll go for would be Tokenomics in that Kensington Palace. Sorry, no, the Royal Hunt Cup. Sorry, Tokenomics in there. Ticks loads of the boxes. Like I say, I was hoping Volterra would come in, but the trainers targeted this race before. I think they've done the same again. If the good to firm ground isn't an issue for the horse, I think this one can go very close in the Royal Hunt Cup. Right, Will, that is day 2 done. We will, of course, be back again to do day 3. We'll have some information by then as well, draws and all that stuff. And then when we come back to do Fridays, we might be saying, well, actually, it's changed again now. So we'll see how it goes. But really appreciate your time on this one, mate. And like I said, it was a hard day to get through, I think, in terms of trying to find the prices. But there's definitely some good cases made there from yourself. Like I say to everyone that watches this, there'll be a link in the description for the final selections. Fingers crossed we get that place spot up that I've promised everyone, by the sounds of saying this about 85 times. But it looks a good day's racing. Best of luck with all your bets out there. There'll be links in the description for our sponsors' sign-up offers. Terms and conditions will be in the descriptions too. And then we'll catch you again tomorrow.